Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show, and if I don't have questions, I don't have a show. This is the Ask Earl Anything for June 2022, and I have a bunch of questions. Now, before we get started, I did a little video the end of May asking if this was still a relevant show, and the outpouring of love and support for Ask Earl Anything was amazing, and I want to thank everybody that left feedback and comments and questions. And one of the things that I asked during that show was I want to update the show by having more of you participate in the show. So if you have a question for Ask Earl Anything, there's a couple ways to get to me. I'm available on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, I'm on Instagram as earldrum. And if you want to, you could take a little video of yourself and send it to my earldrum. When you do that, just make sure you say, hey, I'm one of your followers, and I will watch your video and take your question and then answer it on Ask Earl Anything. Another way to do it is by taking my email address and sending me a link to your YouTube video. You can do that by basically hitting my email address at earldrum@aol.com. And I will not open any links that are not identified with who you are, where you're from, how you know me. So if you just send me a link, I'll never look at it. Don't ever expect that. I don't touch links I don't know from anybody. But if you send me a question, you write it, hey, I watch your show, and this is the question. I did a video question, and here is the video where you can find it. So you can make that video unlisted, and that way nobody sees it but me, but then it becomes a personal question that I will somehow taken through the magic of digital and put on my show with me. I have one video question today from my good friend CCM Drummer. I'm not supposed to use his real name. It's Matthew Jackson. CCM Drummer asked me a question. So we're going to do his question today video. We're going to put that in here. And we're going to go right into the show today. I have a lot to cover. Couple things I want to say before I go too deep. I had some videos blocked this week. I've had some videos that were blocked released this week. And I have a video I did for Alan White that is not blocked, but nobody seems to be able to see it. That's kind of an interesting one. I just did the John and Yoko Ono song, John Lennon Yoko Ono song, Instant Karma, because Alan White, the drummer from Yes, played on it. Now, I have done Imagine previously, and I've done some Yes songs that Alan played on very recently in April. But those were pre-released before Alan's passing. So with Alan White passing this past week, I thought I would do another Alan White song. I chose Instant Karma. It's been out for a couple, 3 hours, and normally have at least 5, 10, 20, 30 hits sometimes on songs. I've got 0, so that means nobody's seeing it, but it's out there. Now, I had a couple other songs that were old Chicago songs. I released Wishing You Were Here, which I did in December of this past year in 2021. And that song I released today, and some of you are seeing that and commenting on it now. After Instant Karma, so I have 2 songs released on this Sunday. When I'm doing this is the end of May. Right? I'm actually doing this on Memorial Day, so it's a Monday. I'm kind of lost on days. But anyhow, long and the short of it is that song has been waiting to be released. And then I had one that hadn't been released for 3 years. I've Never Been in Love Before from Chicago 8. Love the song. Played it a long time ago, and it's been blocked for a long time. I have no idea why they would block that song that nobody knows, but it was blocked. So with that being said, it's unblocked, and some of you have already commented on that one. For all you YouTubers out there, when you get a blocked song, just put it in a folder, mark it YouTube blocked, and check it periodically, and you may find out that one day it gets released. That happened with 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. That's happened with a bunch of my songs. A couple Van Morrison songs this year got released. Now a couple more Chicago songs. So all I can say is that's the way it works. And I don't know if any of you saw this, but KM Can Drum, Kelly Cusimano, Kelly's been doing his uncle's, Carlos Vega's live album with James Taylor. He's been doing a lot of songs, and I said to Kelly, I'm going to do one. He said to me, why don't you do one? I did one. I did Up on the Roof, which is an old James Taylor, Carole King song. Carole King did it first. It's originally a 50s tune, I think. And then James Taylor has his version of Up on the Roof. I've done another version of that, which I love, which was the studio cut. And I thought, well, I'll just do the live cut. And I cut that this weekend, and it got blocked. So I had 2 unblocked and 1 blocked this week. And one that's kind of blocked, but maybe not blocked. I don't know what to say about it. So YouTube doesn't make any sense is what I'm trying to say. If you're a YouTuber and you get a blocked video, just put it away. Leave it on YouTube. Leave it in private mode. And then one day it may become released. You just go through your videos periodically. I have a folder just marked blocked YouTube or YouTube blocked videos. Helps me figure these things out. So that's my YouTuber tip of the week. Don't throw away your blocked videos. Don't take them down. Just leave them in private mode and they stay there. Okay, with that said, let's talk about questions from this week's Ask Earl Anything. Now, my first question comes from Nancy, and I'm going to butcher your name, Nancy. I think it's Medeiros. So Nancy Medeiros, and she said, this was on the song Never My Love. It was one I did for Hal Blaine week about 3 years ago. And I think it was the week that Hal died, actually. And she said, I love your brushwork on this. Any chance you can tell me how the rhythm goes on the snare? It sounds like 16th triplets in the right hand, and then left hand 2 and 4 with ghost notes. Just guessing. Can you show me how to count it and play it and what you're doing on the snare? Thanks. Well, Nancy, just want to let you know I have another version of Never My Love, and it's going to be coming out soon. And I use these things called Blastics. So let's buy my Blastics over here. Put the iPad there. I use Blastics. Now, the original one I played with brushes. Never My Love is a song by The Association. It's from the 60s, and Hal Blaine definitely played a brush pattern. And the brush pattern was kind of just a funky, loopy groove. Like, so really what I'm playing is a rock pattern. And every once in a while, he'd throw these little triplet things. And the right hand would be a little bit more swung every once in a while. But he wasn't playing on the hi-hat. Where was he playing it? He was playing it on the snare drum. So let's put it on the snare drum and give it a little bit different vibe. So really, I'm just playing your 9-year-old rock beat, a little bit swung, a little bit funky. And that's really all this tune really is. It's not really anything too complicated, but it sounds complicated because it's being played with brushes. So a lot of times songs that seem complicated really aren't. Now, the art to playing these kinds of covers is realizing that Hal Blaine was creating in the moment. He was basing it on something basic, but he wasn't lost in playing the part over and over again. He was playing what he felt. He was vibing with the other musicians. He heard the other musicians playing certain things. So how you play things really has to do with how other musicians play, and you're reacting to what they're doing. That's called using your ears. And I think that's something that's lost in a lot of today's music, where we try to learn parts exactly like the record by reading them, or somebody cutting things up in little pieces and then blocking it in, dropping it in, so it's exact and perfect all the time. That's not how music was made back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It was made a little bit looser, a little bit more about the vibe and the feel, and you can feel the inconsistency in what was going on. Now, these are modern day brushes, okay? But if you use the other brushes, they definitely have a different, totally different sound. So let's listen to the other brushes. These are my Steve Gadd brushes. And every once in a while, I would kind of play like a little something that was part of the melody a little bit, and give it a little bit more of that vibey thing. The other thing I want to say about playing with brushes or playing with sticks, it's the sound. It's the sound you get coming off of things. So I'm trying to get a certain sound that kind of goes with the music. That's what I try to do with all the covers. Is I'm trying to match my snare drum sound to the vibe of the record. So that's really what Hal was doing. He was making the vibe of the record. That was the vibe. Now that was a little rolly thing. It's kind of like a rough. And that's just something I hear when I'm singing it in my head. It's almost triplet-y, I guess you could say that, Nancy. But you get the vibe. It's all about the vibe, and that's what that song was all about. It was all about the vibe. So anyhow, Never My Love by The Association. And I got another version of it coming out, and I'm playing Blastic. So that should be out soon. I'll put it out probably around the time I put this out, somewhere that week. So you can, after I release how to do it, then you can actually do it. Okay? All right, my next question comes on a different song. And this was a newer song I had just done in April, actually in May. It's called Get It Right the First Time by Billy Joel. And this is from Mickey F. And Mickey F says, man, that sounded really cool. Could you explain how you play the funky groove with the one in this song and break down the intricate various drum parts, ghost notes, etc.? Well, Mickey, I'll take a shot at trying to break down the main drum part of this song. I'm having some issues with the top cymbal for some reason on this thing. So, what I remember about this song is that's like the main drum part. Boom, da-ka-doo-doo. So that main part is a funk beat that I learned how to play, I think, out of a book called the Chet Dobo book. And there was one of these patterns, I think it was off the bell. So it's one and two E enda. Three and four and. One and two E enda. One and two E. That's all I'm doing is and, 1, 2 E enda. So the first part is a 2 E enda. So you're playing 1, 2 E enda. 3 N. So the 3 N and the 4 N, and there's a 4 on the snare. not a complicated part at all, actually. Now, the way you make it feel in the pocket is sometimes I'm not always playing it just the ands on the hi-hat. I'm playing a little more. So what I'm doing is I'm playing more ghost notes. And those ghost notes are in-betweeny notes. And those are things I just do naturally. It's kind of part of my style. I'm not sure Liberty played those parts, to be honest. He might have played it. I'm doing an there too. One. So I'm doing the 2E and so I'm throwing the on the bass drum. So that's kind of the breakdown of the main pattern in there. Now, there's a part where it kind of goes into the samba thing. And without the music on, I'm not going to naturally do this, but I was doing something where I was doing a 1, a 2. I think I was doing la 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 la, that part. Let's see. So I'm not going to break the whole song down for you because there's like a lot of little parts that I need to be hearing to kind of play them. But that is a samba groove, and that's what I was kind of playing. I was playing the bums on the snare on the bass drum and playing the upbeats, kind of like a disco upbeat. That's 2 of the parts. Now, there was one part that was more of a tom thing, and I didn't really play it like the record. And I kind of figured it out after watching a couple other guys play it. By the way, I don't normally watch other people play these songs before I play them. It's not my normal practice. Probably 99% of the times I don't look at anybody else playing the song, but I play it. And then when I'm done, I may see some people that have played the song, and I watch and I go, oh, wow, they did it better than I did. That's usually my reaction to it. Is like, oh, I like what he did better than what I did. But that would mean like you should actually study other people, right? But no, I don't study other people because the goal of me doing drum covers is to play like me. And I love Liberty DeVito's energy on this song, but I'm not Liberty DeVito, so I got to give it my thing. So that's what I did on Get It Right the first time. It's the main thing. So that's pretty much the breakdown of the beat, though. I hope that helped you out, Mickey. So thanks for the question. The next one is another Mickey F question. Thank you, Mickey, for 2 questions. This was Love You Inside Out, the Bee Gees. That was the disco tune. That was another disco tune. He said, great job, Earl. Fun to play, too. I love the bass drum work throughout, not to mention the tom fills. Maybe you can talk about your quick double bass drum notes, such as slide technique, heel toe, and demonstrate. I use both as I'm not as good at it as I would like to be. All right. My bass drum technique. I laugh because I don't really feel like I have a great bass drum technique. A few things I try to do with the bass drum. First off, I play more toe and sliding for these doubles than I might like to admit. I do play heel down for certain types of songs, so my bass drum technique's a little all over the place. If I'm playing something I want more of a poofy open sound, like a jazz tune or something, and this bass drum will not give me that sound. This bass drum's tuned to go one sound, which is that thumpy sound. But when I'm playing heel down, I'm playing usually more jazzy type songs, and I'm trying to pull the sound out of the bass drum and get the big sound and taking the beater off the head. That's the beater off the head versus that's beater in the head. So there's two techniques there. Now, when it comes to playing faster notes, you know, I practiced some things to get there. One of those things is that pattern I was playing for that song, the Billy Joel song. That ba-bum. I've got that so ingrained it comes out. One of the patterns I've been trying to work on forever, since I was 17 years old, was the bottom thing, you know, the triplets. And I had those triplets just never work the way I want them to work. I'm always flubbing them. There are guys like George Flutist that play the bottom stuff, and he just plays those effortlessly. So he has some kind of technique that he's been working on. And trying to get that triplet thing is kind of a slide. And you know what? I just have to sit here and work at it. But I can't say that I'm an authority on bass drum technique. I'm somebody that pulls sounds out of it, and if it sounds right, then I did it right. But I really have a hard time talking about my bass drum technique because my bass drum technique's pretty terrible, actually. Just like my hands, I don't feel like my hands really do what I want them to do, but I make them do what I want them to do after playing for so many years. So when it comes to technique, I don't feel like the authority on any technique. You know, some guys go, well, I do the push-pull thing, and I do this thing, and I do the slide thing, and I do that. There's so many guys that do it better than me. So I would recommend you watch Thomas Lang, you watch Steve Smith, you watch some of these guys that are super bass drum. I mean, I watched a couple kids on Instagram with their foot technique. It's like slide and tip. Oh, forget it. All I do is I sit here and try to get certain grooves to sound a certain way. Until I get them, that's the way it is. And one of those things is that double pattern. That ba-bump, ba-bump pattern. I have that one thing down, and it's really a toe thing. And it's kind of an ostinato practice thing, which is what the samba beat is. It's an ostinato over and over again. And it's just something I sit there and play and play and play, and it just comes out. But when it comes to that bottom triplet thing, it's pretty erratic. Man, it's just not there. I really wanted to do something, and I slopped through it. So, and every once in a while, I'll slap one of those triplets in every once in a while. I'm good for one. When I have to do 2 or 3 of those in a row, that's when it's all out the window. So doubles that are just 2s, I'm pretty good at. I guess my foot's adjusted. But when it comes to doing that pattern over and over again, there's a pattern in the Carmen Appice book. It's and I am just butchering the snot out of it. As you can see, I'm practicing on camera. That's what I'm doing right there. Need to work on my foot. Thank you, Mickey, for reminding me of that. I need to work on my foot. So what's my moral of the story? Just keep doing what you're doing, and maybe you'll press through. And if you see a guy that's really good at, listen to what they're telling you to do. But I can guarantee you, anybody that's really good with their foot spent hours just sitting here messing with it till they get it to the place they want it to. And my years of messing with stuff for hours are long gone. I like to just play music these days. That's kind of my thing. So I play what I can play that fits what I can play. All right. My next question comes from my friend 805 Breeze. His name is John, and he basically wrote a question. He said, do you clean your cymbals? And if you do, what do you recommend for Paiste cymbals? All right. First off, Paiste doesn't recommend anything but Paiste cymbal cleaner. Paiste doesn't make their cymbal cleaner anymore. So Paiste doesn't recommend anything to clean their cymbals. That's the truth. So let me tell you the truth about me. I, for the most part, don't clean my cymbals, but have had this like groove juice stuff that came with some kit that somebody gave me for cleaning cymbals and drums, and it was like a sonar kit for like tuning up your drums, and there was this like groove juice stuff in it, which is kind of like I guess it's like lemon water based stuff. And I will occasionally spray it on and rub my cymbals to take the shine, but it doesn't take the labels off. And sometimes it seems streaky to me, and sometimes it doesn't work at all. So I'm hesitant to tell you to ever clean your cymbals, especially Paiste cymbals. Most of the cleaners will take the labels off, and that's what most guys don't want to do with them. But if they're taking the labels off, they're also taking off the lacquer coating that new cymbals have. So most new cymbals come out of the factory, and there's a light lacquer coating. I know that's true for Paiste cymbals. I think it's true for Sabian and Zildjians too. And that light lacquer coating will come off after about 5 to 7 years, usually. After 5 to 7 years, all bets are off. You know what I mean? If it's even there, that lacquer, because it just kind of, it's so thin, it just kind of goes away. It doesn't stay forever. But I would say if you want to clean your cymbals, you know, use something like a light, non-abrasive cleaner on it. Maybe a bottle of water with lemon juice in it. And that's got acidity to it, and just spray it on and just wipe it down. Or soapy water and soapy warm water. That's safer if you want to keep your labels. But if you use those pastes and things, God only knows what's going to happen to them. And sometimes it may turn out exactly what you want, and others times it may not. I'd be very careful with buffing cymbals, because if you don't know what you're doing buffing cymbals, you can get too much friction, and that could change the cymbal sound in some respect if it's too hot. So be very careful with that. If you want to keep your cymbals clean, use gloves when you move them. I don't do that. Fingerprints will eventually wear out the lacquer. That's usually where the lacquer wears out first, is where there's enough fingerprints, the oils on your fingers. That's pretty much my thing about cymbals, but I have this thing where I love cymbals. I love them when they're new, but eventually I just don't get too crazy. Now, the giant beats, as time goes with the lacquer, you start to see the golden B8 comes through and the green kind of goes away. It's kind of interesting how these cymbals work. The 2002s will eventually start, the lacquer starts to go, and you'll start to see the fingerprints. And but I generally don't clean them, really. I don't really clean my cymbals. So hope that helps. That's my thing on cymbal cleaning. Not much, man. All right. My next question. This one comes from the question from Has Ask Earl Anything run its course? And I will say this guy did ask this question. I wasn't sure what to do with it when he asked it. And he backed off, and he pretty much apologized to me for asking the question. I didn't think the question was terribly invasive, to be honest. But the question was pointed. So I'm not even going to reveal his name, okay? I'm just going to say, I'm going to answer the question because I want to. All right? He basically referenced something I said in the video, and he said, you mentioned your wife's credentials, but I was wondering what you do for a living. Do you have a job? Are you retired or drawing some kind of government disability? I think it's a fair question for someone who has injected themselves in the social media personality with questioning sessions on YouTube. So that's how he found me. I guess he saw this video about Ask Earl Anything, and he found me. And he asked that question. Now, for those of you that know me and have been watching my show for a long time, you know I talk a lot about my career. I am a safety director for a civil engineering company now. I worked in the cable industry previously as a training director, safety and training director. My career has been safety and training, learning and development. I am still employed and I am still working. I've worked as a consultant for safety and training. That's what I do for a living. I'm not retired. The amount of output on my videos has to do with the fact I can do videos quickly and fast. And I do a bunch of them on the weekend and I parse them out during the week. I have no credentials for doing an Ask Earl Anything show other than people like to listen to me talk about drums and cymbals. So I don't even claim to have credentials for that. I do have 47 years of playing drums, and I've collected drums. I have some vintage gear. I love cymbals and drums and snare drums and recording. And I've been playing actively for 47 years in all kinds of situations. So I have a lot of knowledge from my background of playing lots of music. But I don't come off as an authority, and I'm not an authority. And I would tell you right now that, the truth of the matter is, like the cymbal question, about cleaning your cymbals. Here's what I do. That's what I do. Here's how I approach this. But you are free to basically watch what I say and say that's a bunch of crap and I'm not listening to it. And I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? I would say with anybody that's on the internet, you take as much from them as you possibly can. And then if there's something that seems a little wrong, you learn from it. I watched some how-to videos on how to fix my microwave, and that helped me to buy the right parts. And then I bought the right parts, then I replaced them, and then I fixed it for a while. Then something else went wrong. I don't think it's the same part that went bad because it's doing something different. So it's a different part now. Would I recommend that you follow the guy that I watched to replace the microwave door switches that were causing a problem with the microwave turning on? If you were my friend, I would say this is what I watched to fix my microwave. But for the most part, I'm not out there endorsing this guy's videos. So I'm not out there. I didn't even write on his video and say, hey, this is great stuff. Some other people did. So I took that as something as saying, okay, I'm going to watch this and see if there's something I can learn from it. I think we can learn from anybody. You can learn good, you can learn bad. So my credentials are I've played a lot of drums. I've played on albums. I've played out in the studio. I've played in live gigs. I've played shows. I've played theater. I've done rock shows. I've played in contemporary Christian music. I play in my own studio. I have my own studio. These are all things that are part of my background. I talk from that place. But if you don't want to listen to it, that is fine with me, man. That's the whole thing. But the whole Ask Earl Anything question was coming from a guy who basically said he thought it was pretentious to basically say Ask Earl Anything. He said it was pretentious to say ask me anything is pretentious, not Ask Earl. He wasn't attacking me. Matter of fact, the guy didn't attack me at all. He basically just threw that out because he wanted people to ask him questions. But he wasn't going to call his show Ask Him Questions. So that's good. I respect you. You don't use my titling for my show. That's something I did a long time ago, 5 years ago. Over 100 episodes. I've got a history of doing this. So anyhow, that's who I am. And I thought you guys should know that if you don't know it by now. Okay? All right. Next question comes from my friend Double Deuce Drums. Double Deuce Drums is my friend Chadwick Perry. Chadwick's another fellow YouTuber. He asked me a question about the new John Robinson ASBA snare drum, ASBA snare drum. It's a French company, and they made a snare drum where you could move the lugs around to have different types of tensioning. So I think it starts with, I don't know if it's 10 on the top, 10 on the bottom. And you can move things around. You can make it like 6 on the top, 12 on the bottom. You can move where you want to tension, how you want to tension the head. You can make it six lugs on both sides, or 8 lugs on the top, 6 on the bottom. You've got opportunities to change things up. And what did I think of that drum? Well, I watched John Robinson talk about it. Do I think I would buy one? No, I don't think so. I think it's a lot of money for a drum that does a lot of interesting things. but it's not my cup of tea to keep messing with stuff. I like to have a drum that does what it does, and then I don't mess with it too much. That's kind of my MO more than anything else. So I think this drum looks kind of interesting. And I guess if you're going to only have one drum, this would do a lot for you. But it's also kind of gimmicky. So this signature drum that John Robinson helped create with ASBA it's cool, but not something I would probably end up buying. But I think it's definitely something that some of you might dig. So I might find a way to show a little picture of this in this video so you can see it. But for me, it's too much work. That's the way I look at it. Too much work. So when I pick drums that are going to do certain things, and I put the drum on my stand and I play it. And the funny thing is, I've got probably about 13, 14 snare drums hanging around here these days. And I really only use about a handful of them. Maybe 5 are my favorite drums I go to. So I've got drums for all kinds of things, but I don't use them all the time. So the drum, and then my favorite drum is this Black Beauty 5x14, it seems like. Even though I'll have my seasons where it's the Noble Cooley 5x14. I also have a 6.5x14 Black Beauty. And then I've got my DMR drums that were made for me, created for me by the owner of DMR, Dan Rotelli. And one's called the Hammer and the other one's called the Duke. And those are my signature drums for that company. And, you know, what can I tell you? So that's pretty much how I look at that. But I think John Robinson's, it's great that he's on another drum. I haven't seen him use it live ever. I mostly see him using DW drums these days and DW snare drums, even though the guy's got more snare drums you want to know. And he's got a couple signature models from Yamaha and Pearl. So this is his third, probably, I think it's like his 5th or 6th signature drum. I think he had a couple for Pearl and a couple for Yamaha. So this is an interesting drum. But it is a really different thing, like Chadwick said. So that's that. My last question comes from CCM Drummer. So CCM Drummer asked the question.
Hey Earl, this is CCM Drummer. I really enjoyed your last video about drum talk, where you talked about using drum triggers in recording. My question is, could you elaborate a little more and perhaps give some demonstrations on what you mean or what is meant by a false build? Thank you and keep up the good work.
So CCM Drummer is asking a question based on a video I put out called The Transient Friends. And I did a video for a song called 1984. Now let me say a little bit about this video and this project. First off, I only played on one song on the album. I actually went to the premiere of the album this weekend, and it was an emotional thing because a good friend of mine who I played with in church and worked on some other things with passed away the weekend before. He was not on the song I played on, but he was on most of this album. His name is Chris Woody Wood. He's a West Palm Beach guitar player, great player. He's surely going to be missed. So I released this on the day that the Transient Friends new album came out. I left a link to the album. I hope some of you guys check it out. If you guys feel led to help out Chris's family, there's a GoFundMe page linked too, to help the family any way you can. This project was special to me in that my friend David Urbanati, who I've done a lot of recording with, I've worked on his last album that came out in November. I've worked on tracks that he's produced for other people that haven't come out. He's just a good friend. And the interesting thing about this song was he sent it to me and said, hey, send me a drum track and send it back to me. And what I did was I did a drum track the way I wanted to do it, and I sent it to him, and he wasn't really into it. So I said, David, why don't you come down and hang out with me, and we will record the drum track. And it took us about an hour to record the drum track, and I recorded the session for an hour on my iPad. And pretty much what he was doing was telling me exactly what he wanted me to play. Now that's the interesting thing. That whole video was about him telling me what he wanted for a drum part. It wasn't me playing the way I wanted to play. It wasn't me playing with my creativity. It was me playing with what he wanted. And one of the points he asks a question of me, he was asking me to do something. And he said something exactly like about the false build, like, yeah, where the false build is. And there's a place in the music where it seems like it builds, like you should do double stops. Like a build normally is something like this, you know, where you go. That's like kind of your normal build where it has a crescendo. With double stops, a lot of guys will do it on snare and floor tom. And there was a spot in the music where it seemed like he wanted a build. And he addressed this thing called the false build. And I don't think I ever quite played it the way he wanted me to play it, but during the video of recording it, he said it, and I just kind of like nodded my head. And that was a nod my head moment where I was going, yeah, I think I got what you're saying, but I don't think I really got what he was saying, because I don't think I really did it the way he wanted me to do it. But what I did do, the next pass, wasn't good enough to go, oh yeah, that was fine, that was good. So the funny thing about communicating in the studio with an artist is trying to figure out what they want. And sometimes they use terms that don't make a lot of sense. And sometimes you kind of look at somebody and go, yeah, I think I know what you mean, and off you go and you try. So that's what happened with David on this track. And there was a lot of moments like that. And I think that that's what the charm of that video was, if you watched any of it, was me trying to negotiate how to play this song with David and giving him what he wanted. Realize this, that David got the track he wanted. And matter of fact, David said to me that one of you guys wanted to do the track better than I. Said you could do the track better than I could. So I thought, well, that's kind of funny. It's kind of cracked me up. But he was kind of more like offended that it was his track. He's like, he created that track. It was like him programming it almost, because he was programming it by saying, Earl, play this, Earl, play that. You know, from the beginning, you know. That silly part that I was doing. He wanted that part. I didn't want that part. I would have played something else. So it's just interesting that you got to realize that the whole purpose of that video was to basically say, I'm going to play the song and serve the song the way the producer artist wants the song to sound. And that is what you do in a recording session. And I'm going to tell you a story. My friend Mike Fasano told me this story. He was drum teching for Steve Gadd. Okay? And Steve Gadd was brought in to do a song by a guy, a no-name guy, but a guy that wanted Steve Gadd. It was a vanity project. Now, vanity projects mean guy has lots of money and he brings in a famous players to come in and play on his album, and basically has the money to afford to have a famous player play on it. When you get Steve Gadd to play on your track, you're paying top dollar. So he brought Steve Gadd into a famous recording studio in Los Angeles, and Mike teched for the guy, you know, for Steve Gadd, and he set up Steve's drums. And once he got Steve's drums, the guy said to him, hey, I'm going to ask him to play this part. And it was almost like a polka beat, Mike said. It was one of those kind of parts. You know, it was very simple. And Mike said to me, he said, I could have played that part. He said, you could have played that part. But he hired Steve Gadd to play that part, and he wanted Steve Gadd to play the part that he wanted played. And Steve was like the consummate professional. He walked in, and he played exactly what the guy wanted. And he didn't gripe about it. He didn't say nothing like, oh, we should do this or we should do that. He played exactly what the guy wanted. And that's the moral of the story for 1984. I played exactly what the producer wanted, and he was happy with it. So realize that sometimes you may hear other things and think that something should be more. I could have done a lot more on that track. I could have overdubbed more things. I could have put more electronics on it. I heard a whole different bridge with a halftime feel. None of that was what David wanted. David wanted that straight drum part. So the key when working with a producer is to give them what they want. And that is the art of being a good studio drummer. The pros know how to do that, even if it's polishing a turd, as they call it. Because that's what it is sometimes. Sometimes you're playing a song and you're polishing a turd. And the guy you're working with says, do this. Just hit crashes. And you're saying that is the dumbest part ever, but that's what they want. You give it to them. You're polishing the turd. So sometimes it's not about you, is what I'm saying. So remember that. Keep that in mind when you're playing parts and when you're working with other musicians. And your ability to play what they ask you to play is more valuable than you injecting what you can play on it. When I was young, I used to always inject what I can play on things. But the key is, if you can play what they need to make them feel comfortable playing the song and they're happy with it, that's great. And as they start to trust you, they may actually let you play more. Matter of fact, most of the projects I've worked with David Urbanati on, he has kind of let me be me and play what I needed to play. That's the funny thing. But on this song, he wanted exactly what the part was, and he wanted exactly like he said. And he asked me for a false build, and I don't really think I gave him that false build he was talking about. But I'm not even sure I understood what he wanted. But I kind of played whatever it was, and it worked. So that's really the answer to the question, Matthew, or CCM drummer. So thank you for asking that question. Thank you for watching Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without your questions, I don't have a show. I want more video questions. I saved it for the end. Hopefully next time I'll have 3 or 4 video questions. That'll be a lot more fun. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Great Memorial Day. A great June. Matter of fact, if I get some questions before the end of the month, maybe I'll do another one this month. Love talking to you guys. Everybody, take care. Be blessed.